Well, good afternoon, TikTok. It is April 19th, and it's been a couple of weeks since I've posted a video. I apologize for that. Um, the Montreal trip I went on was fun, but it really wore me out, and then I ended up catching a cold or something like that from on the plane. There was a snot-nosed kid a couple of rows up away from me that was sneezing and coughing the whole trip, so lo and behold, I ended up catching a cold. So yeah, it's been a kind of mellow couple of weeks for me, but I'm back. I'm going to be starting posting some content, and we are 9 days away from the election in Canada here. Advanced polls have opened, and according to media reports and a couple of friends of mine who have actually gone out and voted, lineups are pretty long. Well, that's good. I think that it's good to see Canadians engaged in the democratic process, and people are out there voting. Now, a couple of things I just want to address real quick. On social media, there's some stuff floating around that people are told to bring your own pens and don't use the pencils supplied by Election Canada, blah, blah, blah. Canadian elections are run differently. They provide a pencil, you mark the X on the candidate that you want to win, you put it in a box, and it's counted in front of people. There's no machines, no nothing. But according to Elections Canada, you can bring your own pen if you want. So if you feel more comfortable using a pen provided by you as opposed to the pencils provided by Elections Canada, by all means, you are free to do that. So there's some confusion about that, so I just wanted to put that to rest. Now, I had somebody ask me a couple of weeks ago about what they thought what I thought the election prediction would be. Now, on Threads, back at the beginning of March, I made a pinned post and stated that I think it's going to be a Liberal majority with 184 seats. And this was back when the Liberals were, you know, kind of a little bit behind the Conservatives yet in seat count. Polling today is showing a Liberal majority of, depending on 338 Canada's, like 196 seats, and Poll Tracker on CBC is like 188 or 191 seats or something like that. So I think I'm a little conservative in my number, but I do think it's going to be a Liberal majority. And that is going to be my topic of the conversation I want to have real quick here today. And it's a term that has been bandied around quite a bit, and I'm not sure if a lot of people understand what it means, and it's voter efficiency. Now, you're going to hear that on the news, you're going to hear that in social media posts, you're going to hear that on TikTok. And a lot of people may wonder, what is voter efficiency? And how does that play into this election? Well, it's a pretty simple thing to explain when you just look at where Canadian Liberals get their majority of their votes from and where the Conservative Party of Canada gets their majority of votes from. Now, the Liberal vote is what's quote-unquote efficient. So when you look at past electoral victories and even polling for this current election, you'll see things like the GTA, the Greater Toronto Area, Montreal, urban centers. Hell, even in Alberta, we got Edmonton and Calgary where Liberal seats are in play. All right. What ends up happening is the Liberal Party of Canada, Liberal candidates, they will win lots of seats in the Greater Toronto Area by a few hundred, few thousand votes. The Conservatives, on the other hand, will win their ridings, predominantly in the prairies in Western Canada, by huge margins. Like, I'm in Lethbridge, and the Conservative candidate here in the last election won by like 12,000 votes. But regardless if you win by 12,000 votes or if you win by one vote, it's still just one riding, right? And that's why in the last two elections, I'm going to close my patio door, it's a little loud here, but that's why in the last two elections, the Conservative Party of Canada has actually won the popular vote. But in Canada, popular vote means nothing. It's not like that it means anything, right? We're a first past the post system, so you just need to win your riding by one more vote than the next person, and you win that riding. So how does that play into Canadian politics? Well, like I said, the Conservatives in Alberta, for example, will win their ridings by tens of thousands of votes. But it's still only worth one vote. versus the Liberals will win, like I said, their ridings by a few hundred votes or a few thousand votes, right? Huge difference. So that's what voter efficiency means, right? The Liberal voters, their vote are, I don't want to say worth more, but they're more consequential than a conservative vote in a predominantly conservative riding. So, how does that play into this upcoming election? Well, according to the polling, which another thing too with the conservatives saying, now they're out. Do you believe the polls and blah blah blah? Like these are the exact same polls: Nanos, Abacus, Leger, the same polling firms that back in December were calling for a conservative supermajority, right? So the polls then were great, but now that they're flipped to the other side, not so great, right? And that's just dumb. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense to have that mindset because polls are polls, right? Numbers are numbers. And it just also leads me to believe, the way the swing happened, there was a lot of animosity towards Justin Trudeau. And people were moving to the Conservatives because they hated Trudeau, not because they liked Pierre and the Conservative platform, right? And then once Trudeau was gone, those natural Liberal voters gravitated more back toward the Liberal Party. The big surprise in this election was the absolute and utter collapse of the NDP and the Bloc in Quebec. I mean, you got the Conservatives sitting at around 37 to 39%. All right, past couple of weeks, there hasn't been a lot of movement in the polls. Conservatives are in that 37-39%, and the Liberals are at 42 to 44%, right? 5 to 6 point difference, which is a Liberal majority. I mean, there's just no if and or buts about it. But the collapse of the NDP and the Bloc, if this was any other election, and the Conservatives were sitting at 37 to 39%, they would easily have a minority for sure majority government. If this was any other election, if the NDP held at their traditional 19 to 22% and the Bloc were at their 29 to 32% traditionally, that's where they hang out in the polls in past elections, right? And that didn't happen this time. People are looking to one or the other, conservatives or liberals. And, it's funny because you look at it, the numbers, like the conservatives haven't collapsed. Yeah, they lost a few percentage points of, disfranchised liberals who went to the conservatives who now went back, right? But yeah, their vote hasn't collapsed. So conservative support in this country is still strong, really, really strong. And Pierre is a popular guy with the base. I mean, that's just the cold hard reality. But because of the NDP and Bloc collapse gravitating towards the Liberals, that's why we're in a situation where we are at. I mean, even myself personally, like I've never voted Liberal ever in my life federally, and this election is the first election where I am voting Liberal. If Trudeau was still running, I probably would have voted for the NDP candidate here in Lethbridge. I've voted Conservative before in the past, but even provincially as well. But last election I voted NDP. I can't stand Daniel Smith and I can't stand Pierre Poilievre. If the Conservatives had a different candidate besides Pierre Poilievre, I might still even be voting Conservative, but I can't stand Conservative. But anyway, running short on time here, voter efficiency. So that's what voter efficiency means. The votes for the Liberal Party in the urban areas is more efficient. They win more seats with less difference between them and like the Conservatives versus the Conservatives. When they win by huge margins. But in the Canadian political system, it doesn't matter. Like I said, 10,000 votes or one vote. If you're the winner, you win that riding. And Lethbridge, for example, is only one riding. So you got 10,000 Conservative votes that are wasted. And that's just how it all works out, right? Biggest complaint in Western Canada is, the election is decided by the time polls close in Ontario. And this is going to be one of those elections, except maybe BC. BC might be a little bit of an interesting thing to watch. So anyway, I'll be posting more videos more regularly now. I'm starting to feel a lot better. So you guys fight fascism, take care of each other, and make sure you go out and vote. If you have to wait in line, it's still worth it. Do your part. Protect democracy.